Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining us today as we gather to honor and remember those we lost on September 11th and in the years since of 9/11 related illness. I would ask you to please rise for the procession by the Westchester County Police Ceremonial Unit Color Guard and the pipes and drums of the Police Emerald Society of Westchester County. Please remain standing as we come together for the Pledge of Allegiance, led by New York State Senator Andrea Stewart Cousins, followed immediately by the Star-Spangled Banner performed by Westchester County Department of Corrections Sergeant Joetta Crum.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we held at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets wrecked the bombs bursting in air gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave for the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Please be seated. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tim Sheld. I'm the former WCBS News Radio 880 news director, and I'm honored to be here with you today for this solemn ceremony. I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge some of the distinguished individuals joining me on the dais today. Representing all fire departments, we have Andrew Sandor, Fire Commissioner and Chief of Department for the City of New Rochelle. Representing EMS is David Dawson, Chair of the EMS Advisory Board. From law enforcement, we are joined by Chief Eric Grutzner of the Pleasantville Police Department, who also serves as President of the Westchester County Chiefs of Police Association. And representing the 9/11 families, we are honored to have Jim Drowan, Jr., a 9/11 First Responders Memorial family. I would also like to recognize the presence of our elected leaders also up on the dais with us. Westchester County Executive George Latimer, Deputy County Executive Ken Jenkins, Westchester County Board Chairman Vidat Gashi, Westchester County Clerk Tim Idoni, and the Westchester County District Attorney Mimi Roca. Their support and leadership are vital to our community, and to them, I thank you for inviting me to be here today. On September 11, 2001, I was a national radio reporter for ABC News, based in New York, my hometown. That morning, I was at my home in Bergen County, in Montvale, getting a late start so I could cover the results of that night's mayoral primary, New York City mayoral primary. When the first plane hit, the phone rang, and I was dispatched immediately to the World Trade Center. Based in New York for ABC News, a national organization, I was their breaking news reporter. I was sent at a moment's notice all over the country to breaking news stories like the Oklahoma City bombing, the LA earthquake, the school shooting at Columbine High School in Colorado. But this one was different. This was my town. This was happening in my hometown. It seemed unreal to me as I did my best to respond into the city, and the horror only got worse. A second plane in New York, a plane into the Pentagon, one down in western Pennsylvania, and of course the two towers coming down in Manhattan. Unreal. All of this, and I was still nowhere near lower Manhattan. Bridges and tunnels were shut tight. Highways were backed up because of the closures. Eventually, I got my wife to meet me on the Rockland side of the Tappan Zee Bridge. I had a game plan. We met in the deserted parking lot of the Palisade Center Mall, and she brought me a change of clothes, a bike, and a bag for my equipment. I drove across the Tappan Zee, headed down the Sawmill, and ditched my car off the Henry Hudson Parkway in Riverdale, and began riding my bike down Broadway into Manhattan. Every few miles, I would stop to phone in a report to the national ABC News desk of what I was seeing along the way. The images are indelible. Frantic parents rushing to schools to pick up their children, stunned commuters in dusty business clothing gathered on 179th Street in Manhattan, waiting to cross over the George Washington Bridge that was closed all day and waiting for it to reopen to escape the mayhem. And a few blocks south of Columbia University, I watched fighter jets streak across the sky over the Hudson River. They were protecting my city. My country, it seemed, was at war. For the next several days, I used that bike to commute into the dust-covered streets surrounding the destruction that was the World Trade Center. I did my best to tell the story of the heroic efforts to dig at the burning pile in a frantic race to find anyone alive. I remember talking to firefighters working the bucket brigades. I spoke to police and EMS digging into the piles of still white-hot twisted steel. In the days that followed, I walked the site with New York's mayor and New York State's governor. Days later, I walked in with the head of the FBI, Robert Mueller, and the U.S. Attorney, John Ashcroft. Up close, the pile was enormous, unbelievable. In the months that followed, it did become smaller, but the fires continued. The smell of smoke permeated the area all into the fall. And yet the work went on, uninterrupted, around the clock. The team of recovery workers turned into an army. It included members from all kinds of city and state agencies. I saw all the badges. I saw retired fire and police members come back to pitch in. I met building trade members and saw volunteers from local police and fire departments across the region who were there for months. It really was something to see. My job was to bear witness to this selfless sacrifice, and it was clear from what I saw, these workers considered their mission sacred. Having seen that work up close so many years ago, I'm honored to be here today, not only to remember those killed on 9/11, but those we've lost in the 23 years since. In 2003, I stepped back from radio reporting and took over the management of the newsroom at WCBS News Radio 880. And in my 20 years in that job, I made it a priority for our team to continue to tell the stories of 9/11, especially the terrible health impact the attack had in our community and is still having today. I'm proud, deeply proud of the reporting done by people, my colleagues, Peter Haskell, Sean Adams, to push for the passage of the James Zadroga Act, which called for health monitoring for first responders, volunteers, and survivors of the September 11th attacks, and provided funding to care for their needs and their families' needs. There can be no more noble mission than caring for those who gave selflessly to their community, no questions asked. And that mission must continue today, as our heroes are still suffering and still dying. I took a trip to Chicago this summer with my daughter, 26-year-old, well, actually, I went to see my daughter with my 29-year-old son, and on the way, we stopped in Shanksville. We went to the Flight 93 Memorial in western Pennsylvania. It's beautiful if you've never been there. A peaceful place that tells an amazing story of Flight 93 and their heroes and those who responded there that day. This spot feels very much the same. It's beautiful, it's peaceful, and it's important. May it give you peace to be here, and may it remind others who pass through to keep up the mission, to remember September 11th, to remember those we lost that day and those we have lost in the years since. Never forget means we must never give up remembering. Thank you. Our first speaker is a steadfast leader in Westchester County who has continually honored the memory of those we lost on 9/11 and supported the heroes who emerged from that tragic day. He is committed to preserving our shared history and ensuring the well-being of our first responders. Please welcome the Westchester County Executive, George Latimer.
Thank you, Tim. There are three basic themes that I think of when I think of this day, and those of us in public office, I'm going to mention some of my colleagues in office in a second, hear the opportunity to express our feelings at a moment like this, and it's hard to say something that's different or fresh from something you may not have heard before, and there's so many municipal services like this where we tend to, be unable to articulate something fresh and new every time we come to the microphone. But very clearly, the first theme is to recognize the sacrifice of the firefighters, the police, the EMS people that day, and now in the years that have followed through 9/11 related illnesses, that those individuals that serve us made a tremendous sacrifice, the sacrifice of their lives for all of us. That is why we remember their names on our wall of remembrance, and that's why some of them are the names that surround the statue of the Rising. These were people who were committed to serving us, and on one particular day, that service required the sacrifice of their life. We cannot possibly grasp what a tremendous commitment of life that was. And the families that remain here today, who are here today to remember their loved ones, that is a core message of what 9/11 is about. The people that we lost who were sacrificial on that day because they were serving us. The second theme is that of our common humanity. For those of us who are not first responders, who are civilians, citizens, we could have easily been in an office building where we work that day to find out that an aircraft hit our building a few floors below us, and in some short period of time, we had no way to escape. I look at the people that I work with every day on the 9th floor of the county office building, and I think, what would happen if we knew that we could not escape where we were? The people that I'm with every day, all of a sudden, this would be our last day on the planet. The civilians that are remembered around the base of that statue were people who were good Americans. They were doing their job that day. And if you look at those names, Those names reflect every religion and every ethnicity that there is. They were killed not because they were white Americans or black Americans or Asian Americans or Latin American Americans or Native American Americans or gay or straight or any of those other differentiations. They were killed that day because they were Americans. That was the statement that those terrorists intended to make, that they made that day. The third theme I'll hold off for a second. Those two themes bring us all together today. And we try to recapture, as hard as it is in this difficult, divisive society that we're in now, the unity that we had in the aftermath of that. For those of us who remember, those barriers dropped for a while, and we looked at each other as brothers and sisters, not through the lens of politics or the lens of demography. Here today, I have colleagues in government. They're in different parties, we're in different responsibilities, but we are colleagues. And to the extent that we in positions of government authority can find unity, to make public policy together through the different levels of responsibilities we have, that is an important mission today. Let me recognize, you've already been introduced to the leader of the New York State Senate, Andrea Stewart-Cousins, who is here with us, a longtime friend of mine, has served us well. She is joined by two colleagues from the New York State Senate who are with us, Shelley Mayer, Senator Shelley Mayer, and Senator Pete Harkin, and we thank them for this. We're joined at my best eyesight by two members of the New York State Assembly, Assemblyman Chris Burdick and Assemblywoman Mary Jane Shimsky. And if I missed anybody, we'll make sure that Tim knows so he can catch up on him before we're done. We're joined today by United States Congressman Mike Lawler. Mike, thank you for being with us today. In a minute, you'll hear from the chair of the Westchester County Board of Legislators, Vedat Gashi, but I would like the members of the Board of Legislators that are with here to stand up and remain standing. They will be reading the names in a few minutes. We are partners and friends in the governing of Westchester County. Let me also ask the executives in the executive branch who are here. We have commissioners, we have various department heads from various different responsibilities. My executive team, Ken Jenkins, the Deputy County Executive, Joan McDonald, Director of Operations, John Nona, County Attorney. Would all of you in those positions please rise? We thank you for being here today to be part of this. We have with us individuals from local government. As I mention your name, just stand, remain standing until we've completed all of them. The Mayor of Scarsdale, Justin Arist, is with us. Town Supervisor from Mount Pleasant, Carl Fulgenzi. White Plains Councilman Rich Payne. Dobbs Ferry Village Trustee Shari Rosen Asher. Yonkers City Councilwoman Corazon Pineda Isaacs. New Rochelle Councilwoman Martha Lopez. And I think we have a majority, illegally so, of the Greenburgh Town Board, Ellen Hendricks, Joy Haber, and Gina Jackson. Thank you, colleagues. Sometimes when you go to an event and you say, oh, you've got to mention all the politicians, it is the unity that we show in governing that's important. And unity does not mean we agree all the time. It doesn't mean we don't have our disagreements, our arguments, whether it's in political party or within a party, but it shows the respect for other people who have been given the authority by their voters to come and help make those decisions. And if we understand that America is greater than any political party, is greater than any one level of government, then we can move this country forward. So I thank all of my fellow elected officials for being here today to honor the first responders and to honor the families of those that we've lost. One more time. Thank you. Let me close my comments with the third theme of today, and it's a sobering theme. 9/11 was about the sacrifice of first responders, and it was about the humanity of civilians caught up in an untenable situation. It was also about evil in our society, and let us not forget that. and the evil that was expressed that day by men who trained to fly airplanes into buildings and were prepared to kill people that they didn't know to make a point is not gone from this planet. And we would be foolish if we neglect to mention that on this day as well. We have to be vigilant, and we have to be willing to call out evil when we see it, because it will repeat again. And if we are diligent, then there'll never be another 9/11 again. God bless you all.
Thank you, Mr. County Executive. Next, we welcome a leader who has made it his mission to ensure that Westchester never forgets lives lost on 9/11 and the continued sacrifices of those who served and continue to suffer from 9/11 related illness. Please join me in welcoming Westchester County Board Chair Vedat Gashi.
We gather to commemorate a day that forever changed the course of history. September 11, 2001. Though decades have passed, the heartache of that day endures. The lives we lost, the sacrifices made, and yes, the resilience shown remain etched in our collective memories, shaping us still. When the Twin Towers fell, they took with them far more than steel and concrete. They took fathers and mothers, husbands and wives, sons, daughters, friends, colleagues. Yet in the midst of that immense darkness, something profound emerged. The revelation of who we truly are. In the face of unimaginable tragedy, the character of our nation was laid bare. We saw firefighters, police officers, paramedics, and ordinary citizens rush into danger without hesitation, driven by a courage that came not from obligation, but from the deepest parts of the human spirit. They showed us what it means to be selfless, to be brave, to be an American. They showed us the very best of ourselves. To the first responders who continue to serve, your dedication is a living embodiment of that spirit. Every day, your commitment to the community reminds us of the heroism we witnessed on that day. You carry forward the legacy of those we lost, and through your actions, you reveal the strength that still burns within us all. We also honored those who have since passed, who quietly suffered from the lingering effects of that day. Their sacrifice, though less visible, is no less profound. They, too, are heroes, and we owe them our deepest gratitude. And to the families who continue to carry the weight of this unimaginable loss, your strength in the face of such profound grief is a powerful testament to the enduring love and spirit of those we lost. Your strength and courage is a beacon for us all. And as we pause to remember, let us not only reflect, but resolve. Let us honor the memory of those we lost by upholding the values that they revealed to us that day: unity, compassion, and unshakable strength. Together, let us pledge to carry their legacy forward by building a future that is just, more hopeful, and more compassionate. And may God bless America. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Our next speaker has played a pivotal role in ensuring that the impact of 9/11 is never forgotten. He was a 9/11 first responder himself, and as an attorney, he has been an advocate for benefits and support for the 9/11 community for years. His work as co-chair of the 9/11 Related Illnesses Memorial Committee honors the courage and sacrifice of our first responders, those whose health was affected by the aftermath. Please welcome Matthew McCauley.
Thank you very much, and welcome to everybody. I've had the opportunity to have many different perspectives on this work. And having been an attorney, I always work backward to where I came from. I was an 18-year-old volunteer fireman in the village of Pelham Manor. Became an EMT, then a paramedic, then a police officer. All of that is what carries through to the different perspectives that I have had in life with 9/11. I was there at Ground Zero. I was a responder. With all those perspectives, I want to offer you this. Please understand, we do not want anything for ourselves. We became police officers, firefighters, and paramedics to help others. We went to Ground Zero, the Pentagon, and Shanksville to help people first, and then to help their families bury something. We were there together with one mission, and we left after completing the mission. I've been in many places in this world and done many things, but I can tell you that I did not want to be anywhere else but Ground Zero when I was there. We were part of showing the world we would never back down from terrorism, and that we would all work together. No races, no colors, no politics. Those are the words of Detective Luis Alvarez, June 11th, 2019, in front of Congress before John Stewart testified. Everybody here remembers John Stewart. That's my friend Louis' comments. That's my friend Louis, who was a detective who went to the bomb squad because narcotics was too dangerous. Those, my friend Louis, who went to Ground Zero, asked for nothing. Those are the sentiments of every first responder that's sitting here, whether it's a 9/11 responder or any other first responder. It's always about somebody else. Those sentiments about being at Ground Zero is exactly how every single person on that memorial behind us feels. They'd go there then, they'd go there 10 seconds ago, they'll go there 10 seconds from now. So what the county executive was speaking of before, we'll always be there. We don't care what the colors, the politics, or the races are. We're always going to be there. You don't know any colors, politics, or races for anybody whose name is on that wall, those walls behind us, and we've had to expand them. As a first responder, it's always about somebody else. It's not about yourself. But at the end of the day, it's also always about your family. And what Louis had brought up in his terminal illness was, I just want to make sure my family's respected. I want to make sure that they know that people care about what I did and about what the sacrifice is for them. Well, we're going to continue to have that respect for years to come. And unfortunately, we're going to keep adding names to this memorial every year. The importance of this memorial also is it goes beyond police, fire, and paramedics and EMS. It goes to people in the press. It goes to people, and I know Peter Haskell was side by side with me in DC. And it goes to the people who were down there recording and covering these issues. Their names are on the memorial. It goes to the construction industry, like Ronald Piniella, other people from the construction industry who don't have another memorial. These are the places where their family members come because they can see their names on memorials like this. That's the importance of remembering the folks who are at Ground Zero. It's not people just wearing badges. It's not just people wearing patches. It's people that were standing there as a first responder, standing behind the people who were cutting things, who were moving things out of the way, who came down there because they were at a construction site 5 blocks away, they saw it happen, and they didn't leave for months. So these memorials that we keep having here, and we will have them every year, I thank the county executive. In his future, wherever it's going to bring him, I know for a fact that he doesn't see politics. And thankfully, most politicians don't when it comes to 9/11. And it shouldn't be about who cares about the debate last night or anything else. This is a group of people that went to Ground Zero on the day of a primary in New York City. They didn't care who anybody was voting for. And after that, and months later, they continued that place. So now we're going to continue to make sure that their families, their children, and their grandchildren can point up at the memorial and say, that's my grandfather, even if they never met them. So I thank everybody for their support. We will continue to be here and continue to honor people in this community from Westchester County for years to come. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Matthew. Our next speaker has shown incredible dedication to preserving the memory of 9/11 through her role as co-chair of the 9/11 Related Illness Memorial Committee. Her commitment is deeply personal. Her husband, Stephen Hittman, former executive director of the FDNY, passed away from an illness related to the toxic exposure at the World Trade Center. Please welcome Georgia Asciuto.
Thank you, Tim, and thank you for the opportunity to speak today. Let me just say first to Matt. Matt, you are a hero to me and the many families that continue to suffer, and we are deeply grateful. Matt gets another round of applause. Let me begin by recognizing our county executive, George Latimer. George, you continue to lead the efforts to never forget the Westchester residents who died on 9/11 and the first responders who perished thereafter. It was your vision to establish the 9/11 First Responders Memorial. And together with your team and the county, where's the county? The support from the county legislators, we now have a permanent place of remembrance where we can come together to honor and respect our lost heroes, and where families and future generations can come and visit forever. Thank you, George. To the men and women, in uniform here today and throughout our county, we understand the risks you take every day for your community. Your service and dedication is what warms our hearts when we think about our losses. Thank you. Many of you sitting in the audience. And to our elected representatives from both the state and federal levels, you have continually supported us with programs to ease our burdens and help us recover from these devastating tragedies. Thank you for recognizing the lasting impact from 9/11. We hope these initiatives will continue so more families can have some comfort. And now to the families of 9/11 first responders recognized today. You've heard about my loss, but sadly, my story is not unique. My story is your story. It's our story of heroism, bravery, strength, and fortitude. Those are the words on the new monuments added this year to honor 8 more responders who fought through debris then and died now. Every day is a tough day for families, with today being especially difficult. It's almost unfathomable to me that decades after 9/11, the toxicity from the pile would continue to bring down individuals today. Yet, that's the reality we are in. We know it, we feel it, we've lived it. And despite our personal pain, we come together on this day to collectively honor our fallen heroes, to reflect on their lives, to remember their sacrifices, and to honor our heroes, which I just repeated. Sorry about that. 23 years later, at least 81 individuals who either worked, lived, or volunteered in Westchester County have passed away due to their rescue and recovery efforts. More responders are sick, and sadly, more lives will be lost as a result of that horrific day in our history. Today marks an important day of remembrance, and it will always be a day filled with mixed emotions, sadness and grief, but also honor and pride for the selfless acts of sacrifice, for the tenacity of the human spirit, and for the determination and willingness to help others. I hope these are the remembrances you can hold on to and take some comfort from on this day and the days thereafter. When I think back on September 11th, 23 years ago, to me, sometimes it feels like it happened yesterday, with those vivid images ingrained in my mind. And sometimes the reality that 23 years have passed is also very clear and present. Time is funny that way. When I was young, my mother would often say to me, and I will quote, "Time goes so fast." And me, being who I am, would challenge her. Shelley, you would agree that I would challenge her. And I would say, "Mom, what are you talking about? Time is time. It's defined by intervals, by measurements. It is fixed. Time doesn't change." It didn't matter what I said. Mom just kept saying, "Time goes so fast." And then I grew up. And then I became a widow. And I finally understood what Mom was saying all those years ago. She wasn't referring to the measurements of time, but rather the moments of time. The last moments shared with loved ones who are no longer with us. Those precious moments, no matter how long they lasted, weren't enough, and that time had gone too quickly. Mom was right. Time is fleeting. Precious moments move quickly. Let's never forget that. I'd like to conclude by reading some lines from a song I first heard a few weeks before my husband passed away. His battle with cancer did not last long, and this song stayed with me throughout those remaining weeks. It's called The Dance by Garth Brooks. Here are a few of the lyrics. Looking back on the memory of the dance we shared beneath the stars above, for a moment, all the world was right. How could I have known that you'd ever say goodbye? And now, I'm glad I didn't know the way it all would end, the way it all would go. Our lives are better left to chance. I could have missed the pain, but I'd have had to miss the dance. While the time I had with my husband went too fast, I will forever remember the dance we shared. And I hope your good memories will carry you forward forever. Thank you.
Our final speaker today is a leader who has not only served on the front lines of our community safety, but has also been deeply committed to remembering the brave firefighters and first responders who gave everything on 9/11. Please welcome Andrew J. Sander, Fire Commissioner and Chief of Department for the City of New Rochelle.
Good afternoon. It really is an honor to be asked to come up here and speak. I see all the uniformed people here, anybody here who had any memory of 9/11, of Ground Zero. I was just another responder who ended up having to be at work that day and responding in the few days after that, weeks, and just one Westchester story out of all our first responders here, the families here. Everybody remembers September 11, 2001 was a clearer day than today. There wasn't a cloud in the sky that day. Tim talked about the fighter jets, I remember, flying over Manhattan. However, as the county executive described, the day turned terribly wrong when 19 terrorists executed their detailed plan, committed acts of baseless depravity. However, these horrific events would set the stage for one of the greatest rescues to ever occur, during which scores of heroes would demonstrate the meaning of the word sacrifice and service. In addition to the 109 people from Westchester who lost their lives that day, it is appropriate to remember the 343 FDNY members, some from Westchester, who gave all. Also, the 23 NYPD, 37 Port Authority police officers, as well as the 15 EMTs and 3 court officers who made the supreme sacrifice. September 11 was also the first day of a 3-day tour for New Rochelle Fire Department's 2 Squad. Initially that day, right after the attacks, we were going to cover a firehouse on East 233rd Street in the Bronx. However, when the towers collapsed, New Rochelle Engine 21, Ladder 13, Rescue 4, I happened to be on, and DC and an aide were sent directly to Lower Manhattan. We could see the plume of smoke as we went on the cross-county expressway towards West Street. We went directly to Lower Manhattan, and we remember seeing all the empty, demolished fire apparatus. I remember seeing Ladder 5 at the base of the North Tower with the ladder extended. And when you see a fire truck with no members around it, it's kind of makes you think, what's going on here. We also remember all the waiting ambulances lined up and going nowhere. The fact that the ambulances weren't going anywhere told us things were really bad. And as we gazed on what became known as the pile, for the first time our hearts sank as we thought of all the members who were in there forever lost. The one pledge we made to ourselves that day was that no matter what, wherever we are on 9/11 going forward, we will never let people forget the indescribable heroism and sacrifice of the Fire Department of New York. The FDNY commanders at the World Trade Center attacks were the most seasoned in the entire department, including the Chief of Operations, as well as the Chief of Special Operations, Battalion Chief Ray Downey. They must have known in the back of their minds the potential for eventual collapse. Anybody who watched 60 Minutes on Sunday night saw the documentary that they've been showing each year. I believe the reporter's name is Scott Pelley. And he said he was down there and kind of gives a whole account. And it's very graphic, shows all the FDNY in the minutes after the South Tower collapsed, shows Chief Gansey, the actions that he took as a leader. And it's something, it's inspiring, very inspiring. Going forward, they must have known in the back of their minds the potential for eventual collapse. However, like all good firefighters, their gut instincts drove them and their members to try to get the situation under control. All right, thus preserving the life and existence of their fellow man. May they never be forgotten. In the days following September 11, New Rochelle firefighters would join other Westchester fire departments, riding buses to Ground Zero to continue the rescue and recovery effort on the pile. New Rochelle Deputy Chief Frank Strollo would be among the many who would ultimately pass away from 9/11 related cancer resulting from his work there. And we also have, as Matt and Georgia described, the wall over there as well with the families for the 9/11 illness related. Excuse me. Westchester County Fire Departments also worked with the county's Department of Emergency Services, provide coverage for FDNY firehouses while those FDNY members were assigned to work at Ground Zero. We had volunteer career departments, didn't matter, lining up to cover for FDNY. Totally, never been south of wherever they were, but going into the Bronx, going into Manhattan, covering firehouses so FDNY members can go work on the pile. During that time in 2001 and 2002, Westchester firefighters would also attend countless funerals in the greater New York area for FDNY members killed in the attacks. In a family tight as ours, everybody knew somebody who was connected to these members. In New Rochelle, we have Iona College, who lost 15 alumni that day. Well, it's Iona University, I stand corrected. I'm an alumnus, so I should know that. But, lost 15 alumni that day, including 3 FDNY firefighters, 2 guys I played on the rugby team with. Iona's motto, however, can give us hope and direction. That motto reads, Certa bonum certamen. It's Latin for fight the good fight. Fighting the good fight means to do the right thing, trying to get others to do the same. Someone who is fighting the good fight looks to be of service. It's not about self, it's about service. This person wants to improve the world around them. As today we consider our past, we could also consider our future. In closing, there's another great motto from New Rochelle. We got a lot of mottos down there. Found right here on our city crest. That motto reads, Nunquam retrorsum, if you look real close, and that means never backward, all right? So going forward, what we always think about, those who have passed before us on the job since I've been on and others as well, we honor these 9/11 dead as well as those who have passed since from the illnesses by moving forward, never backward. We move forward each day, and we continue to fight the good fight. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you to all our speakers. We will now read the names of those Westchester residents who were killed on September 11th, 2001, followed by those who have died from 9/11 illnesses.
William Aberson, Peter Craig Alderman, Kashiro Benai, Sharon Balcom, Yelena Bilovatsky, Michael J. Berkeley, George Bishop, Michael A. Bacardi, Michelle Renee Bratton.
Thomas M. Brennan, Jonathan Eric Breeley, Mark Briesman, Lloyd Brown, Ronald Buca, Tom Burke, Mary Caulfield, Alex Ciccone, Kevin Francis Cleary.
Lieutenant Richard H. Eifler, Yonkers Fire Department. Firefighter George D. Ewell, Jr., Mount Vernon Fire Department. Captain John J. Fascioloni, Yonkers Fire Department. Police Officer Nicholas G. Finelli, NYPD. Carpenter Seamus G. Finnerty, New York City Department of Education. Firefighter Daniel R. Foley, FDNY. Detective Mark S. Gatto, New Rochelle Police Department. Paramedic Scott D. Galetta, Sr., FDNY. And my father, Captain James A. Dronin, Sr., Austin Fire Department.
Robert J. Cole, Helen Crossan Kittle, Joan Cullinan, Patrick W. Danahy, Dwight Darcy, Marissa DiNardo, Simon Didvukai, Simon A. Vanani, and John J. Dougherty.
Christopher Michael Duffy, Paul Fiore, Thomas Fitzpatrick, Kevin Joseph Frawley, Alan W. Friedlander, John Patrick Gallagher, Charles Garbarini, Peter Tolinas.
Karen Joseph Gorin, Eugene Goria, Gary Haig, Richard B. Hall, Vincent Halloran, W. Ward Hayes, Nabushi Hatushi, Katsushi Harara.
Thomas Warren Holwick Jr., Montgomery McLeod Horde, Louis Stephen Ayatora, Ariel Louise Jacobs, Arthur Joseph Jones, Douglas G. Karpiloff, Satoshi Kikuchirahara, Tahashi Kinoshita.
Glenn Kerwin, Richard J. Clars, Gary Kocheler, Vanessa Langer, Dennis Lavelle, Joseph Levy, FDNY, Michael A. Lepore, Richard Lynch, Jr.
Michael J. Lyons, Katie Marie McCloskey, John T. McErleen Jr., Francis McGuinn, Michael McHugh Jr., Barry J. McKeon, Robert C. McLaughlin Jr., Christopher D. Mello.
Yamo Marina, William Minardi, Krishna Murthy, George Morel, Dennis Moroni, Takuya Nakamura, James Oakley, and my neighbor and the father of one of my middle school classmates, Sochi Numata.
Diana J. O'Connor, Amy O'Doherty, Marini Point O'Doherty, Samuel Otis, Sean Gordon Corbett O'Neill, Chris Ogowitz, Timothy F. O'Sullivan, and Michael F. Pager.
Thomas Palazzo, James Nicholas Papa George, William H. Holman, Himanth Kumar Putur, Vincent A. Princiota, Valsa Raju, Robert A. Rasmussen, John Rio.
Joseph R. Reverso, Gregory E. Rodriguez, Edward Ryan, Tatiana Riova, Sam Salvo, Eric Sand, Robert Scandoli, Marion Serva.
Daniel Shea, Joseph Shea, Linda Sheehan, Thomas J. Schubert, Alan Schwartzstein, David Silver, Michael John Simon, and Thomas E. Sinton III.
Rochelle M. Snell, Robert Spiesman, Joseph P. Spoor, Jr., Timothy C. Stout, John Swain, Sean Patrick Talon, Michael A. Tamuccio, Kenichiro Tanaka.
Joanna Vidal, Jeffrey Walls, James Arthur Waring, Timothy Matthew Welty, William Wick, Mark Zeppelin, Evelyn Zeminski, and Joseph J. Zakula.
We'll now hear the names of those who have passed in the 23 years since from 9/11 related health issues.
Firefighter Gary S. Allo, White Plains Fire Department. Police Officer Christopher M. Barry, NYPD. Deputy Chief Daniel J. Bales, New York County District Attorney's Office. Sergeant Patrick J. Boyle, NYPD. Firefighter Jeff Campion, Yonkers Fire Department. Director Benedict J. Cesare, New York Department of Sanitation. Foreman Dennis Chialella, Mount Vernon Department, DPW. Volunteer Haiti Cleary from the Salvation Army, and my husband, Battalion Chief Kevin Burns, FDNY.
Sergeant Patrick T. Coyne, NYPD. John M. Koza, Construction Industry. Firefighter John G. Daly, Jr., Scarsdale Fire Department. Police Officer George F. Durini, NYPD. EMT Louis DePena, Jr., FDNY. Corrections Officer Scott W. Delfa, Westchester County Department of Corrections. EHS Manager Gerard J. DeRosa, Con Edison. Police Officer Kenneth X. Dominich, NYPD. Lieutenant Clark W. Douglas, White Plains Fire Department. And my husband, Detective William J. Keating, NYPD.
Lieutenant Richard H. Eifler, Yonkers Fire Department. Firefighter George D. Ewell, Jr., Mount Vernon Fire Department. Captain John J. Fasiglione, Yonkers Fire Department. Police Officer Nicholas G. Finelli, NYPD. Carpenter Seamus G. Finnerty, New York City Department of Education. Firefighter Daniel R. Foley, FDNY. Detective Mark S. Gatto, New Rochelle Police Department. Paramedic Scott D. Galetta, Sr., FDNY. Captain James A. Drowan, Sr., Austin Fire Department. We love and miss you, Dad.
Richard A. Grace, Construction Industry. Commissioner Peter S. Ganat, Yonkers Fire Department. Firefighter Herbert D. Harriet, Rye Fire Department. Police Officer Joseph F. Hyde, NYPD. Executive Director Stefan Hittman, FDNY. Police Officer John G. Horan, NYPD. Detective Michael A. Houlihan, NYPD. Senior Investigator George L. Johansson, New York State Police. And for my sister, Police Communications Technician Marion C. Grillo, NYPD.
Police Officer Stanley J. Casper, Yonkers Police Department. Detective William J. Keating, NYPD. Firefighter Ronald N. Lamanna, Yonkers Fire Department. John A. Lobianco, Construction Industry. John Luna Piena, New York State Department of Transportation. Director Gwen K. McPherson Williams, Department of Homeland Security. Police Officer Anthony Majori, Yonkers Police Department. Firefighter Gary J. Martin, White Plains Fire Department. And my husband, Police Officer Walter L. Mallins, Harrison Police Department. We love and miss you always.
Lieutenant Peter McCaffrey, Yonkers Fire Department. Captain Edward J. McReel, NYPD. Lieutenant Roy D. McLaughlin, Yonkers Police Department. Firefighter Robert A. Mantrasti, Fairview Fire Department. Detective James W. Monahan, NYPD.
Lieutenant John W. Moran, FDNY. Battalion Chief Dennis J. Moynihan, FDNY. Firefighter Kevin J. Nolan, FDNY. Police Officer Kathleen O'Connor Fungiello, New Rochelle Police Department. And our father, Ronald J. Pinella, Construction Industry.
Firefighter Michael R. O'Hanlon, FDNY. Chief Brian M. Payne, Largemont Fire Department and Town of Mamaroneck Fire Department. Firefighter John V. Patini, Jr., Yonkers Fire Department. Captain Philip A. Pinto, Jr., Eastchester Fire Department. Chief Daniel J. Raftery, Greenville Fire Department. Richard Regis, Wall Street Journal. Police Officer Richard E. Regal, NYPD. And my father, Captain Ronald G. Pfeiffer, Sr., NYPD.
Firefighter Eduardo A. Rivera, Yonkers Fire Department. Supervisor Philip M. Rizzuto, New York City Department of Sanitation. Lieutenant John M. Rodriguez, Yonkers Fire Department. Detective Joseph E. Seabrook, NYPD. Police Officer Peter Sheridan, Jr., NYPD. Deputy Chief Vincent Spadaro, Eastchester Fire Department. Captain Robert J. Spada, Croton-on-the-Hudson Fire Department. Deputy Chief Frank G. Stroldo, New Rochelle Fire Department. And my dad, James P. Sullivan, New York City Transit Authority. Miss and love you every day, Dad. God bless America.
Captain Dennis P. Tortorella, Firefighter Neil S. Tyndall, Jr., Yonkers Fire Department. Lieutenant John Viteri, Larchmont Fire Department. Assistant Chief Roger Vitolo, Yonkers Fire Department. Firefighter Joseph A. Walsh, FDNY. Detective Charles J. Wassel, Jr., Peekskill Police Department. Lieutenant Marden C. Wolf, White Plains Fire Department. Sergeant Peter C. Woods, NYPD. DRC Mildred M. Wordsman, FEMA. And my ex-husband, son's father, and my friend, Lieutenant Paramedic Scott D. Galetta, Sr., FDNY.
Please join me. Please join me for a moment of silence to honor and remember those we've lost, followed by taps performed by Officer Peter Bloom of the Mount Pleasant Police Department and a flyover by the Westchester County Department of Public Safety. Thank you all for joining us today. It's been my distinct honor to guide us through this solemn ceremony. As we conclude, let us continue to honor the memory of those we lost and cherish the unity and strength that binds us together. Thank you, and may we all find peace and comfort in each other. Thank you.
Tim, thank you.